This is CIS30A Week 2, Part 2 of the lecture. So in this part, I'm going to talk about how we can use the string methods that was built in for Python to display specific strings from lists or from variables. So at the beginning of the notes on the bottom of page 2, it talks about how every single string is an instance of a string class, which makes it a string object, and the object contains properties and methods. And at the end of this class, we're going to talk about class. So for now, we're going to work with string, and with the string class, it contains the methods which every string object can access. For Python, there are built-in methods that you can use, so that way it makes it convenient for you where you don't have to write things all manual. And the first example we have here is the split method. So what we can do is we can have a variable and we can assign it a string, such as I love Python for that variable. And we can use the split method to break up each of the substring and group that into a list. So what that will do is the split method is going to break up the word I into its individual string, love another string, and Python as the third string. So we can have it split into 3 substrings from I love Python. And another method that we can use is called count. And this count method gives us the number of specific character in that string. So in this example, what we have is we have the strng1 is a variable, and we assign it the string banana. What we want to do is, let's say we wanted to count up the letter A in the string banana. What we can do is we can do a print, and then we bring down the variable that holds the string, and we can use the count method, and in the parameter for that count method we simply just add the character that we're looking for, A. Now if I'm looking for the letter A, the output of this is going to count up A. So there's 1, 2, and 3A. So it's going to give me the output as 3. Another example, if we're using the same variable and the same string banana, if we wanted to count the letter N, we can simply put the N inside the parameter. Make sure that you enclose that with the quotation mark. And what that will do is going to count up the N. In this case, that will give us 2N, so it would output 2. So here, as you can see, this is an example that we can use further for the count method. So on line 8 here, I have a variable called state name, and I assign it California. Then from there, what I want to do is I want it to use the count method to count the number of the letter I that comes in that string. So I use a print method, bring down the variable, and since I'm using the method for that variable, I would use the dot here and then have it count. In the parameter, since I'm counting I would have it inside that parameter enclosed with the quotation mark, close out the print method. So this would output, first, that was for the banana, count up 3 A's. Second, we count up the letter I, it counts that up to 2. There are 2 I's. And for the third example for count, let's say that I have a list called color LST, the color list, and in it I assign the list contains blue, yellow, pink, red, blue, and white. And what I want to do is I wanted to count up the number of times that blue comes up in that list. So what we can do here is we can simply bring down the list name, just like the variable name that we've done previously up here. We would use the dot and then put in the method count, and we would simply use blue in the parameter as we are looking to count up the number of times that blue comes up on that list. And we would enclose that inside the parentheses as that would be in the parameter, and then close out the print method parentheses. So what that will do is it's going to give you 2, because blue actually is, there are 2 blues in that list, the color list. So as you can see, you can use count to count the number of certain items on in a list, or characters inside a string as well. Going back to a little bit back to the split method, I wanted to show additional examples so you can see. So here is a variable called full name, and I simply put down my name. This is my first name, and I'm using the /n here for the new line, and my last name. So what that will do is it's going to print Casey on one line and Win on the next line. So when I run this, what I have is I have Casey, Win, 2 separate lines. And what we're doing here is we're just simply using the /n to have it in front of the substring that we want it to be in a new line. Next, I'm going to go ahead and split this, so I have an SPL name as a variable. And for the method, I'm going to split my full name into 2 separate. So I break it up as a substring. And how I'm looking to split is when it sees the /n, it's going to cut that in half. So what that will do is when I print, it's going to put my first name as the first string in a list, and then my last name as the second substring in that same list. So I now have 2 substring in a list. Next, I have another example, and this example comes from our notes. So I have a full str as a variable, and I assign it I love Python for the string. When I print it, it should print I love Python, which it did here. And when I split it, I have a variable called splt, and I'm simply using the split method. So you would bring down the variable that you assigned the string originally up here, and then we use dot, and we would have split. And I'm looking to split at every single blank space, so I simply put in the blank space inside the quotation mark, and that would be the parameter. Then I print it. So when I print this, what it will do is going to break up I love Python into 3 substring and put that into a list, which is what you see here. So this way we can use the split method to really be able to break up the string into substring and put that into a list using specific parameter such as new line or blank. So in the notes, your notes talk about using split and count. Next, I'm going to talk about replace. And replace allows you to substitute a substring with another substring. So in the example, what I have is I have my string is the variable, and I assign it I like apples. What if I don't like apples? What if I like oranges? And I want to replace apples with another string called oranges. So in here, what I can do is I can do a print method. Inside the print method, I have my string, which I assign I like apples. Then I use the dot, and then following that I would have the replace method. The first part of the parameter is what you're taking out, what you're replacing. Okay, so what we have is we want to replace apples, so that will be the first parameter, part of the parameter. The second part of the parameter would be oranges. What are we replacing it with? So I wanted to change out apple and put oranges in there. So I would put that here. So when we run this, what you would see is that it's going to print out I like oranges, no longer apples, but oranges. So it replaced apples with oranges. Another example is that we would substitute the substring using the replace method once again. So I have a variable called str1, and I assign it I am a college student. Then next I'm using the print method. I bring down the variable name str1 dot. Here I would use replace method, and instead of colleges I wanted to replace it with CIS. So what are we replacing? That will be the first part of the parameter. The second part of that parameter would be what are we replacing it with. So college is going to be replaced with CIS. The third example here for replace is I have a variable called strng2, and this string this variable I assign it, there are 2 apples, 2 oranges, 2 pears. And I'm simply using a print method. Inside the print method, I bring down the variable name dot, and then the replace method. Inside the parameter, I put down 2 because I want to replace the word 2, or the substring 2, with 4, and I wanted to do it 2 times. So it's going to take out the word 2 here inside that string, and it's going to put in 4 2 times. So it's going to say there are 4 apples. You can see here, 4 oranges, and 2 pears. Since I didn't put 3, it's only going to replace the first 2 of the words 2 in that string. So here, as you can see, we can use replace, and we simply put in what we're replacing and what we're replacing it with. And if you put in the third part of the parameter, it would tell the interpreter how many times you're replacing. So there you would have replace method, which is a built-in method for Python. So you can find this on page 3 of your notes. Next, I'm going to talk about strip. So what we can do is we can use strip to remove white spaces at the beginning of the end of that string. And sometimes you would have user input where they would put in a lot of spaces, and that might take up storage space on our system. So we wanted to clean it up and make it nicer, easier for data storage purposes. So what we can do is we can use strip to clean up the blank spaces before and after our string. We can also use strip to remove certain leading and trailing characters. So let's say if they put in a certain type of characters repeatedly, we can actually clean that up using strip. So in Tawny here, I can show you in my IDE, I have my color is the variable, and I have assigned it red with lots of blank space before and after the actual string itself. Then I'm using the print method. With that, I have a string. My favorite color is, and I wanted to get rid of the blank space. So I simply bring down the variable, which is my color, from here, dot, and I'm using the strip method. So I simply just tell it to strip, and it automatically would strip the blank space. If you leave it blank in the parameters, we don't put anything there, it automatically cleans this up. So when we run this, you would see that it shows my favorite color is red. It got rid of all the extra blank space before and after red. Then the next example, I have my name as a variable, and I have the letter A, comma, B, C, D, dot, KC, comma, dot, EFG. So we have a group of characters that might not be necessary before and after the name. So we can start with the print method, add in the string that you wanted to print, and we wanted to clean up the content of that variable, so we bring down that variable here, dot strip, and we can specify the characters that we wanted to strip. So, and make sure that you put that in the quotation mark. We wanted to strip comma, period, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So what it will do is going to take out these characters before and after the name that I have here. So when I print it, it actually has my name is Casey. So that will be another example that you will be able to use strip method with. And to refer back to our notes, you can find strip example on page 3. Next, I'm going to talk about upper and lowercase letters, how we can convert certain string to upper lowercase, and or we can use is upper is lower to check and see if it is upper or lowercase. And this is going to be located on page 3 and 4 of your notes. So to go into that, here is the Here are the example for lowercase. Now, I have the variable called strng1. I assign it a string, I am a student. And I wanted to print out that string in lowercase. So what that will do is it's going to convert everything in that string into lowercase as I left the parameter blank. So here, as you can see, once I ran the program, it shows me I am a student, all in lowercase. So you can convert everything to lowercase using lower method. What if I wanted to convert everything to uppercase? Using the same variable, I would then have a print method and bring down that variable dot, and I would use upper method to be able to convert everything to uppercase. So it prints out I am a student in uppercase there. So as you can see, we would have lower and upper method to be able to change the way our string looks from upper to lowercase or lowercase to all uppercase, and would do everything if you leave the parameter blank. Now, what if I wanted to check to see if it is an upper or a lowercase inside that string? So similarly, we saw the first part here in our last example. The next one, we're using the islower method. So here I have a variable called strng1. I assign it I am a student, and notice that student is in uppercase there, and the others here are in lowercase. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to check to see if our string is all lowercase. And when I ran this program, what it did is it tells me that it's not all lowercase because we have the word student inside that string. That substring is all uppercase. So that's why it's giving us false here. Now, when I check for is upper for the string to Python, so I have a variable called strng2. I assign it Python in all uppercase, and I wanted to print whether the string is all uppercase. So I would bring down the strng2, which is the variable name that I previously declared, dot is upper, and it's going to check to see if the string is all uppercase. In this case, it is true. That is all uppercase, so it tells me true. So here, as you can see, it's different than lower. Is lower, check to see if the string is in lowercase, and is upper, check the string if it's all uppercase, as we left the parameter blank. So with that, you would see that on page 3 and page 4 of your notes. That gives you the same example, and you can try that out on your own IDE or on idle. Next, we're going to talk about join. And what we can do is we can take all the items in a list. A list would be an iterable object. So it would be able to return the members one at a time. So to further illustrate this, I'm going to go ahead and show you the program that's done in the IDE. So here we have a list called users, and we had Cecilia, Noah, Julia, and Daniel. These are the items in that list. And we wanted to use the hyphen to join all the items together one by one. And so when we print, we simply bring down the sim as we assign it the hyphen here, dot join the users. So when we run this, what you see is it's going to join the first item, which is Cecilia, and then it's going to add the hyphen dash hyphen here, Noah hyphen Julia hyphen Daniel. Now whatever symbol that you wanted to use instead of hyphen, you can use comma, you can use something else, colon, semicolon, that would be the symbol or the character that would be used to join. Okay, and I simply would use a variable to store that. That way we can use that with the method, and then inside the parameter we bring down the list name as we are iterating through that list to join each of the item, and we will join them together using that symbol or that character. In the next example for join, we have a list called letters, and we have A, B, C, D, E. And what we want to do is, as they use separator here, it automatically would have the blank. So when you print the list itself, it actually is A, B, C, D, E with blanks in between each of the item. So when we print, we simply just add the blank, use dot join, and then bring down the list name, which is letters. And so here what you have is you would have A, B, C, D, E. Now this is slightly different than if you do like a print and if you just simply pass letters. I want to show you this so you can see if we rerun this program. So if you print the list itself, it's going to show you the list in the square bracket. And when we join it, we add in the blank. It simply removes all of that. It's going to join it together, and it doesn't treat it like a list itself any longer once we use the join method. So now it would be together as one with the blank for the letters. Next example, I want to show you how to use join is to be able to have two strings combined together with the list. So I would have this string combined with each of the item from that list. So here I have LST1, and in it I have, this is a list. I have Python, programming, learning, school, and blank. The second variable is strng2, and this is simply, it contains is fun. Notice that I have some blank space here and some blank space at the end. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to iterate through each of the item and add in is fun. So it should say Python is fun, programming is fun, learning is fun, school is fun. So when I print, I simply have strng2.join and bring down the list name. So here's the output. Python is fun, programming is fun, learning is fun, and school is fun. So that concludes the example for join, and you can find the notes for join on page 4 of our document. Next, I'm going to talk about starts with. And starts with is a method that checks for the string if it begins with a certain value. So in this example, I have my strng is a variable and it's assigned Peter Pan. And I wanted to use print method to print out after it checks if my variable contains strings that start with an uppercase P, and that would give me an output true. So here's the example. When we run this, it shows that it is true because Peter Pan starts with the uppercase P. Now if we change this to a lowercase letter and a different letter, it would give us false. Now on the next example, I have strng1, I have assigned it Tinkerbell and Peter Pan. And what I wanted to do was I wanted to check to see if it starts with Bell at a certain location of that string. So here we wanted to see if it starts with Bell at position 7, and if you count it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and ends at position 24, so we can go all the way to the end and see. Okay, so we can change this to 24, and when we run this, it's going to give us true. As long as it's within that range, because Bell is within that range, it's going to tell us true. So this is a quick way for us to search for specific substring and be able to use start with method in Python. So in this case, it's also giving me true. Now, if I'm searching for Bell in a wrong range, like at the beginning before it, it will give me false. So you can see here that the same example is noted on page 4 and the beginning of page 5. And the next and the last part of your string method we are going to go over is isnum, isalpha, and isdigit. And this is very important for input validation. A lot of these methods that we talked about, it's very useful when you're working with user input to clean up the user input, to look for specific input, or to make sure that the user is inputting the right content of the data. So here, the first method that we're going to talk about is isnum. And this is a way that we can use a method to check for if all characters are alphanumeric, numbers and letters. For example, address an address would have numbers and letters, like numbers for the home number on that street, and then letters for the street name. So going into the example, here is my example. I have cust info, and I have John Doe and number here. And I wanted to check to see if it's alphanumeric. We know that it has letters and numbers, so that should check true. So when we run this, we see that the first print is true. Next, we wanted to check to see if it's all is alphabet. So when we're using isalpha check for only alphabet characters. So user info stores Jane Doe 1, 2, 3. So this one has letters and numbers. And when we print it, we would see user info is data. That would give us false because it has a mix of numbers and letters. If we only have Jane Doe, it would give us true. So in the fields like first name, last name, gender, specific fields like that in forms, if you have the user input the information, you wanted to use methods like isalpha to make sure that the input is valid. So if the user fat finger or key in symbols or numbers, right, it will be able to check and ask the user. We can apply the control statement and ask the user to input again. The third example for this is a method called isdigit, and isdigit only checks for number. So I have contact info, and here it stores numbers, like a phone number. We wanted to print contact info isdigit. So we wanted to check if it's just numbers, and in this case it is, so it gives us true. So as you can see, isalnum check for alphanumeric, that will be letters and numbers. Isalpha only check for alphabets, only characters, A, B, C, D, E, etc. No numbers. Isdigit, a built-in method that we can use to check for only numbers. If there are only numbers, then it would give us true. So you can follow the notes and check that out at the end of page 5. And that concludes the string methods for week 2, and this would be the end of part 2. Please watch the next video for part 3, where we talk about control statement.